He's the dreamer who charmed the world, the hero who never gave up. The clown who became one of the most beloved characters in animated history. And now, Felix is a major motion picture. The Cat is back. Felix the Cat, the movie. With Poindexter, the Professor, and a galaxy of new friends. Felix is ready with his bag of tricks.
To the land of Zill.
For the adventure of his life. All 9 of them. Felix the Cat. The movie. A landmark in cinema enchantment.
In another dimension, the villainous scientist Duke of Zill, with the help of his mechanical geometric army, takes over the land of Oriana, prompting Felix the Cat to save the princess and restore order once again. 4.6 out of 10 on IMDb, and you gotta love how the description just only once mentions the title character. So from the few things I could find on the Wikipedia and IMDb pages for this thing, it took them at least 4 years to get it released. Like, they wanted to release it in theaters in 1987 or so, but just kept getting pushed back, and eventually it was just dumped straight to video instead of going straight to theaters. I want it to be, let that be known. Think about that. Norm of the North, that goes to theaters. Oogie Loves, that goes to theaters. Felix the Cat the movie, nah, not good enough. Also, interestingly enough, this movie was released by New World Pictures, Roger Corman's old company. So let that sink in. The same company that released the first few Hellraiser movies also released this. That goes to show that Roger Corman, when it came to business, was a very versatile man with the films that he would put out. But let's actually talk about what the movie's about, which is going to be a total doozy because it's kind of hard to describe what happens in this movie. So right off the bat, we get like a minute or so of this CGI Felix the Cat head talking to the audience. And it's really pointless. It doesn't really do anything. It pretty much just says, oh yeah, this is what's going to be happening in the rest of the movie. It's like in certain movies when they have narration at the very beginning and the very end, but not actually during the movie. It's a really weird hack thing. But in this movie's case, I can only assume it was 1991. CG was probably becoming like a new really big thing in the film industry. And it just kind of screamed like, hey, everybody's trying to do CG these days, like make CG animated shorts. We should begin the movie with some CG to show that we can do it too.
Oh, hi everybody. Glad you could make it. You know, we've been through some amazing adventures together, but I just gotta tell you about one that beats them all.
So the movie proper begins as a 2D animated movie, as the rest of the film is, and we introduce Princess Oriana, who runs the land of Oriana, and, well, the first 2 minutes of the movie establish what kind of film you're in for, because it's one of those animated movies where the animation is just spastic and always moving, and there's just characters nonstop just flailing around, making noise, making movement. And the audio mixing makes it sound like characters are talking over one another. Like, even when their mouths aren't moving.
Increase in credits you've accrued, it's just unheard of. Just when the Treasury is showing a surplus.
Minister Grumper, everyone has been working very hard. We've had a prosperous year. Why shouldn't they have a little more?
Well,
I'm so glad you agree. Oh, it's happened. I should have known. I saw all the signs in the cards, in the stars.
Madam Pearl, how...
So Princess Oriana is the proper ruler of Oriana. Even though her parents are gone, she still wants to call herself princess. She doesn't go by queen, which she probably should, but she isn't. And they also established that she disbanded their military.
May I remind you, Princess Oriana, that since you disbanded the army, there is now no defense against such a possibility.
Thank you, Grumper. I don't need to be reminded.
Guess what? That's a really stupid move, because then it turns out that she has some power-crazed uncle who wants all the power in the land. So then he builds this robot army to infiltrate and kidnap her, and that way he can have all the power to rule over the land. And by the way, the evil Duke of Zil, or whatever his name is, or as I like to call him, Kmart Mysterio from the Marvel Comics, his army of robots, lamest robot designs ever. Like, they're literally just like little cubes and cylinders with little like robot stick arms. Yeah, menacing, right? But he shows up, we get a chase scene, and of course the princess gets captured. We also established this one guy that was working with her was actually double-crossing her, and he was working with the Duke of Zil the whole time. That's not important. What is important is that the princess is getting kidnapped, and then she cries a tear, and then the tear becomes gold and sentient, and then it flies off her face, and it activates this interdimensional traveling thing, and that's when we're introduced to our title character. So yeah, we then see Felix the Cat in the real world, I guess, because it has humans, and it has animals acting like animals. Like, why didn't they just have Felix be a resident in Oriana? Because they established later that in Oriana there are these humanoid animal characters running around, so why even bother with this whole, oh, real world then enters into this strange reality? Like, because this was a trope in a lot of old family movies back then, where it's like, you know, you'll have this fantastical, magical world of, you know, these weird, strange characters and creatures, and then, you know, they need the help of somebody from the real world, and it's usually like little kids or something like that, or some person that is having a difficult time with their life and needs some kind of push in the right direction, and then they end up getting sucked into this weird, wacky world, and they end up persevering and showing that they got what it takes to be the hero of their story. But here it's just like, why even bother with the whole alternate dimensions thing? Just have Felix be a character in Oriana. And then, after that, you establish that Felix is on the run from these two scientist characters who apparently want his magical bag of tricks for some reason. I guess they want to take over the world. They never explain why these guys want the bag.
Uncle, this must be something really big. If he's got his bag, I wonder if it has retained its magical powers.
Yes, the bag. I've always wanted that bag.
And then it just made me think, like, okay, so you have a cartoon cat with a magical bag that's being chased by two human scientists. Why couldn't that be the movie? Like, it seems like you have an entire plot going on right there, but then they just put that on the back burner so that way Felix ends up in Oriana and having to help this princess character. Let's talk about Felix himself, man. Felix is a character that existed in the 20s, back when cartoon characters were a new kind of novel concept. I get that, but this movie came out, it was being worked on in the 80s, and it came out in the early 90s, and they just have him talk like a generic Mickey Mouse wannabe, like, down to the voice and everything. Just, like, his first few scenes just consist of him doing, like, you know, oh, geez, gosh and golly gee willikers, oh, wowie, wowzer.
Wait, come on back here. Come on. Hey, who turned out the lights? Woo! Let the cat out of the bag. Woo!
And it's just like, this is our main character, huh? Like, again, this kind of character probably worked in the 20s, but by the 90s, this kind of thing was being parodied on shows like The Simpsons.
Boy, could you use a Big Mac, huh?
So anyway, Felix comes across the tier, and the tier leads him to this underground area where the interdimensional portal machine is. Felix steps inside of it, and then he ends up in the alternate world of Oriana. He gets stuck in the machine, so then he uses his bag of tricks to turn into a jackhammer or a drill or something like that to try and dig his way out. And then it ends up filling up with water, and then we get a few scenes of these weird sea creatures bouncing and dancing around. It serves no purpose, and it feels like it's just there for the animators to show off their animation skills. Anyway, after that happens, Felix ends up coming face to face with this country bumpkin guy called Pim. And yes, that is why I'm wearing my Smiling Friends shirt.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
At first he seems like a good guy, but then he ends up capturing Felix and selling him to this circus place, which is run by this lizard man who's for some reason surprised that Felix is a talking cat, even though he's a fucking talking lizard man with a cane that is sentient.
Some hospitality.
So you can talk, eh? All right.
For some reason, Pim is doing a thing to a robot in the background. I have no idea what he's doing, and quite frankly, I don't want to know what he's doing with that thing. Then the next few scenes are just them showing off like this circus entertainment thing that the lizard guy runs. And you get some cheesy 80s rock music, and I will admit, it's catchy. The beat is catchy. You can barely understand what the fuck they're singing, but... So I will say that the music in this movie is catchy, but it does not connect to anything in the film. I mean, you have scenes later of like characters getting chased or characters sneaking around, and they play this like really inappropriate synth 80s rock music, and it's like, I have not seen a movie with this disconnected of a soundtrack since like The Bounty Hunter. Like, the music selection in this movie is really weird. And then we see that, of course, this circus thing is under the control of the Duke of Zil, and we see the princess being held captive as she dances around in a bubble. I mean, even one of Don Bluth's more batshit insane projects like Dragon's Lair 2, this makes that look sober in comparison. So yeah, the princess is being held captive. Felix ends up getting some help from these rats that are dressed up like lizards that are in the show. They help him bite through, because they can bite through metal. Because yeah, why not? It's just one of the many weird things in this fucking movie. So they help him get up to where the princess is being contained. She gives us the rundown of her backstory, and Felix says that I guess he was the one that was sent there to help her. And so, you know, they start to concoct a plan of how to escape. And so they do. The scientists from earlier have kind of had an on-again, off-again subplot where they went into the interdimensional portal to try and go for Felix.
Excuse me, miss. How much is it to enter this establishment?
4 credits for adults, 2 for children, 1... Yeah, okay, I'll take it. Enjoy the show.
Eventually they escape through this crazy outbreak scene. So Felix and the princess make a break for it. Pim is now on their side. And I guess this is why the scientists became crucial characters, because Felix loses his bag in the commotion, and then the scientists show up, they give him the bag, and then that's it. They really don't do anything after that.
I don't suppose you have anything that belongs to me.
I was bringing it to you.
Is that all these characters were there for? They were building these guys up as being kind of crucial characters, didn't really do a whole lot all throughout the movie, and then, you know, oh, Felix lost his bag. Oh, he got his bag back. It's like, way to build up tension that didn't really matter, movie. There's also a part shortly after that where you think that they lost Pim, but he comes back. It's like, it's all build up to nothing. Like, a little later after that, there's a scene where they get chased by headhunters, which are these creatures, these kind of skeleton-like creatures that have these like freaky-looking monster heads that can, you know, disattach from the body.
It's the headhunter.
They look kind of cool. Like, some of the monsters in this have some interesting designs, but I mean, there's not really a whole lot to them. They don't really do a whole lot with them. And this is just a very minor complaint, but I think some of the color choices in this movie are ugly. Like, everything looks like they were colored with, like, highlighter pens. Like, it just, everything, I know I use this term a lot, but it really does just look like Skittles vomit. It's like, just, I don't know. Something about the color choices in this movie stuck out to me in a really weird way. So they stop the headhunters by putting hats on them. There's an easy Team Fortress 2 hat joke in there. Anyway, they end up giving their robot army the slip because one of the scientists puts dynamite on these like robot horse things that they were riding, and it blows up the robots, I guess. Ultimately, what the movie's climax amounts to is they get cornered by the Duke of Zil, and you know, he captures the princess so that she'll give him the most valuable item in the land, which is a book that contains, you know, what it truly takes to be a leader. And of course, they go for like the sappiest, cheesiest things. He's like, "What is this? Is this a joke?"
What is this? Some kind of joke? Truth? Love? Wisdom? I've been suffering and waiting all these years for this crap.
It's almost like he's a one-dimensional villain who's just evil for the sake of being evil and has no real motivation other than he wants power. So he unleashes his giant robot, and like the other robot designs in this movie, it's not that cool looking. It just kind of looks like a ridiculous robot that you'd see in like a cheesy 60s cartoon. And they defeat it by throwing the book at it. And yeah, they throw the book at it, it explodes, defeats the army, Duke of Zil is defeated. Hooray. Yeah, take that, poor man's Mysterio. Oh, and speaking of cheesy, the final bit of the movie is they're trying to activate the teleportation machine so they can send the scientists and Felix home. And they establish that the thing is powered by gold, and the reason it worked earlier was because the tear turned into gold. And so the scientists have like bags of gold that'll help keep the machine working. But Felix says that he doesn't have any gold. But the princess says that he really does have gold in his heart.
But I have a feeling that your gold will pass through the Demence Quarter.
But Princess, I don't have any gold.
You're wrong, Felix. You do. You have a heart of gold.
I don't even know what to say at this point. I really don't. Like, I went into this knowing that it wasn't going to be very good. I heard bad things. I heard people say it was like one of the stupidest animated movies ever. And it is. The one thing that I kind of liked was the music, but that's about it, man. Everything else, the characters are either incredibly undeveloped or are incredibly annoying. The dialogue never shuts up. The animation never slows down. There's just comes off like nonstop noise and nonstop motion, man. And it's just, you feel like you just want to pop a shitload of Ritalin. You're like, oh God, please make it stop. Even the trailer, when I watched the trailer to make sure that this movie was real, I watched the trailer and it looked like a parody of a kid's movie. It really did. It had like every single thing. America's favorite cartoon cat is back. Felix and a bunch of other wacky cartoon characters are going on the adventure of a lifetime. You know what? No, I got the best way to describe this movie. You know how in certain shows like Simpsons or something, you'll have the characters watching something in the background and they make it look intentionally bad, like poorly animated and really stupid sounding? That's what this movie feels like, but it's the real thing. You know what's sad? This is still probably not the worst movie we're going to be talking about this month. Because guess what? Going back to what I said earlier with Don Bluth, we're looking at quite possibly the worst sequel to a Don Bluth movie that was made without Don Bluth's involvement. Next time on Blockbusters, we're looking at Secret of NIMH 2, Timmy to the Rescue. Fuck.